All right, well, going to turn to our next story. Now it's time for the latest installment of our CMSC Corner segment, where we chat with the leaders in the field of portable coordinate metrology. Today's guest is Ulysses Green, who holds the title of Ambassador for the Coordinate Metrology Society. And the position really is perfect for Ulysses, who knows pretty much everybody in this industry, really. And that's true. It makes sense, since he had a long career with Boeing and GKN Aerospace before his recent retirement. And the phrase that I put into quote marks, because if you've ever seen Ulysses, we've seen
He's not retired.
If you've ever seen Ulysses at a Coordinate Metrology Society conference, the last thing you'd ever think is, well, that looks like a retired guy. He knows everybody. He's there and he's doing a lot. He's been active with the CMS since its inception more than 30 years ago. He's actually been the chairperson 3 times, so very, very deeply involved in this organization. He is especially skilled at outreach, specifically in the all-important nexus of industry and academia, and that's just one of the topics that we're going to be exploring with him here on this episode of CMSC Corner. So, without further ado, Ulysses, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
Hi, guys. Hello.
Well, thanks for joining us. Well, let's start at the beginning, and I wanted to ask you, as I mentioned, you've been with the CMS for a long time. How did you actually get involved in the Coordinate Metrology Society?
Well, back in the early 1980s, the company I worked for at the time, it was McDonnell Douglas, purchased a new technology, which was the Ulysses system. And since it was new to the industry, I was asked to evaluate it and see if we could actually use it in tooling quality, in which I determined we could. But without me really knowing how to use it, I was struggling, and one day my phone rang, and come to find out there was a guy on the other end from another aerospace company that was struggling. And so we started talking to one another. And pretty soon there was 3 people talking to one another. We were trying to find out the best targets to use and what type measurement system, or what we could use a particular measurement system for. Because we were trying different things and sharing the success and the failures. So one day, a vendor was wise enough to suggest that, why don't you guys sit around a table and talk? And so that's what we did. So that was the early start of the CMSC. And it really became an official organization after the photogrammetry systems came online, and they also the photogrammetry system. There was a organization, ASPRS, and which had something for photogrammetrists. So they piggybacked on that, and that was the start of CMSC. So that was the beginning, and that brings us up to where we are today.
Yeah, that's more than 30 years ago. I mean, technology certainly has changed a lot. And you know, another thing that's really changed is the development of academia within this space. We mentioned academic organizations, institutions in our opening, and clearly there's a really strong relationship between those institutions of higher learning and industry. It's mutually beneficial. So what do you see as the key way in which these two groups can really help each other?
Well, I think what's happened is one of my assignments as an ambassador was to come along and try to find the next generation of metrologists, which is the hardest task of all. So what I've done through the years is I've tried to contact the universities where we would have our conference and bring students down to see the hardware and software. CMS would pick up the tab. It was no limit to how many people or students they could come, and that's what we wanted them to do. The vendors were informed ahead of time that when students come through, I want them to be able to touch equipment, try to use it, and spend some time in explaining to them how it works. And so we tried that approach. But one of the big problems is that the conference is still in the month of July, and schools aren't in during the month of July, so it generates a big problem. So one of the things is we would like the colleges to try to create classes that have some metrology criteria in them, and we found out that doesn't happen. We need to have vendors to support colleges and provide them with software, and maybe even go through time to time and and set up demos to show students what's out there and what's available. And we've had vendors to provide and give software to institutions, and so they can get a chance to use it. And they just have to provide maybe pay a small fee for updates. And also industry. I know McDonnell Douglas and Boeing, we donated hardware to universities, access hardware to universities, so they'll have something to train with to introduce students to what we're doing. It's a tall task, but something that needs to be done.
And how does the Amtek grant that CMSC recently got? How's this grant? This is a government grant, I believe. How does this play into all this?
Well, let me back up a little bit. Some years back, CMSC, that's what we call it at the time, used to have what they call a future uses committee. And we would sit around at the conference and determine what's the next step, where should we be going from there. And so the Amtek group really is the next step in that, much bigger than that. It would allow industry, academia, and the vendors to get together and come up with common goals on which direction we should head. They will also always have a roadmap of which direction we're going, so everybody's on the same page, which is really great. And hopefully we'll have some positive come out of that. I know I worked with one company, and we would produce over 100,000 machine parts annually. And I guarantee you there's a better way to do it than what we were doing it. But it continues to be done that way. So now we have an academia and vendors and manufacturing or industry all on the same page, and with a roadmap of where we should start and where we should end up. That's going to really be great. And I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen. But it has to be good, no doubt.
Finally, Ulysses, before we let you go, I know you've been one of the real key early supporters of the Coordinated Metrology Society certification program. So maybe you can give us a quick recap. Why is it so important to have a CMS validated personnel certification program available to industry?
Well, I'll tell you from experience. Worked in quality in the aerospace industry. We've had hundreds of people take the same training, use the same equipment, on the same task, and we get different results. Everybody's not the same. You have to make sure that people know what they're doing. And that's really critical to this stuff being successful. You need that. It's really important. It's long overdue. And for, it's just different. Even smaller companies, you got somebody coming in that's going to try to do a job for you, and you know nothing about them. And so they need help, and that's what we should be doing, is trying to provide them with help and make sure that who they hire is credible and in fact knows exactly how to use that equipment.
Well, Ulysses Green, thank you for joining us today in this segment of CMSC Corner. Could talk to you for a long time about a lot of these topics, but always good to check in with you, sir. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you down the road.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks, Ulysses.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay.